What's happening, guys? Happy Sunday morning. A little special edition of the Dynasty Warzone right before week 7. A lot going on. I was out of town this past week. I was on vacation with my family for fall break. We went to Colorado. My wife loves hiking and, thought we'd get away, but a lot going on. So I'm going to bounce back and forth from topics that I wanted to cover that have happened since I last recorded, which would have been not this past Tuesday, but the Tuesday before, and to do a little something exclusive for the YouTube and Patreon audience. So I will be taking questions live from the chat on YouTube, which are coming directly from our patrons. And then I'll also try to cover Christian McCaffrey and Isaiah Pacheco, a couple of other 2-3 things, and we'll jump right into this. I have a question from Mike, Mr. Mike Kinney, good friend of the show, and has become a loyal patron of the show as well. And he said, Mike McKinney wants to know, Keenan Allen, thoughts, current pivot is Juju. Mike, I'll tell you, I am currently going to go with Juju, and I'm going to tell you why. Not only is Keenan Allen still limited with a hamstring, which we all know sucks, but the LA Chargers have their bye week next week. So even if he plays, he could take one snap, two snaps, enough snaps to fuck you in the snaps, and that would hurt you bad. That's my opinion. But it's a low reward, high risk play for a team that's currently 4-2 with playoff aspirations, that being the Chargers. There is concern with Josh Palmer also out due to a concussion. Big Mike Williams week potentially, although Seattle has a corner that I really, really like. So if I can, I know it's the bye week from hell, and there's not a lot of other great matchups. I think I would use your pivot, Mr. Juju Smith-Schuster. I have a guest host jumping on with me here in just a second. I'm going to bring him in. But to finish this question, you know what? I'll just bring in old Dallas right now. That's Mr. Salad Galore on Twitter. Dallas, what's up, man?
How's it going, man? Sorry to interrupt you. You were deep in conversation about Juju there.
But here's the reason why. I appreciate you jumping with me here early on a Sunday before game day kicks off here in about an hour and 15 minutes. But I also know that you're in the Kansas City area and you're a bit of a Chiefs fan. Now, Mike Kinney, we all love Mike, a great conversationalist in the Dynasty Warzone patron chat, as well as a supporter here on YouTube. He has Keenan Allen. He wanted some thoughts. My thoughts are, with the Chargers having a bye week next week, why risk it? You're 4-2. This is a game where they're favored by about 5.5, 6 points. So they're projected to win against Seattle. So why risk it? Why not give him this week and then the bye week and then have him for that week 9 through the end of the season run for a team that currently, at least record-wise, Kansas City has the tiebreaker. You know, why risk it when you're trying to win this division? Mike's pivot is Juju. Now, I like Juju, and I'll tell you why, then I'll throw all this back to you. I like Juju because Jimmy Ward, the best corner for the 49ers, if he doesn't play, he'll be limited. And San Francisco is the third toughest matchup for the fantasy running back. So this feels like a Kelsey game. This feels like a Juju game. This feels like a work underneath. This could be one of Juju. We can never guarantee touchdowns, but this feels like a lot of targets, a lot of receptions for Juju. So that would be my lean for Mike. I would go Juju over Keenan Allen. Luckily for him, both of these games are 4:30 starts, so he'll have time to make that decision. But that would be my play. I would play Juju over Keenan just based off the injury.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. I think from watching the last 2 to 3 games in KC, the biggest thing with Juju is Patrick is getting a little bit frustrated with the Mecole and MVS experience, where there's a lot of dropped balls going on between the two. Juju has seen kind of a very steady target total in that 5 to 6 range, but his efficiency has been extremely good when he is targeted. He usually catches the ball this year. Same thing with Keenan with the injury. There's no reason really to risk it. I think that the Fred Warner matchup and San Francisco in general is a little bit scary for Kelsey. So if there is going to be a matchup, like you were saying, that you're going to want to exploit this week, it probably is Juju in that offense. I'm staying away from pretty much anyone other than Patrick and Juju this week. Obviously, you have to start Kelsey if you have him, but don't expect big numbers.
Well, you know, I thought the same thing last week because they called is it Jordan Poyer, who plays safety for the Bills?
Yes.
They call him the tight end eraser. So I had a little wager on Kelsey under 80 yards last week, and let's just say that might have bit me in the ass. So I'm never, ever, never, ever fading. Never going to fade Kelsey. But you're our rookie guy. For those that maybe are tuning in for the first time, Dallas is the man as it relates to rookies in general. That's not just here at the Dynasty Warzone, but in general. Dallas puts out great rookie content on his podcast, on this network, the Rookie Rundown. But let's talk about Isaiah Pacheco for a minute, because we're already talking about Kansas City. Before you give us a quick breakdown of Pacheco as a dynasty asset, what you think about, just tell me real quick about his pass catching chops. Is he a good pass catcher? What can we experience coming out of the backfield?
Yeah, well, with Pacheco specifically in college coming out, he didn't have a high usage in the run game or the pass game. He was very much a projection player, which is why I didn't really like him coming out, especially with the draft capital. He can catch the ball, but even this year hasn't really been targeted all that often. The biggest issue is that like we haven't really seen him do it in college or in the NFL on a consistent basis. And the biggest thing that's hampering him, which is why in the group chat, the Patreon group chat, we had a question about it early this morning. Once we heard it, I was like, yeah, it's not Team Pacheco day for me because his pass blocking is still atrocious. And that's the reason he's not getting third down snaps. That's not going to change even if he does get that first team rep type of deal that Clyde has been getting, because McKinnon has been locked and loaded the third down back and the actual red zone back. So if you're expecting a lot of pass catching capabilities now that he's in the lead back, I would just tell you to hold your horses.
Well, and that's where I needed your expertise, because that makes me like Juju even more.
Mm-hmm.
Because someone has to catch the ball. And I want to remind me, I want to talk about offense and offense being down in the NFL, fantasy points being down, et cetera. I want to talk about that in just a second as well. And we have some more questions from some of the patrons, but luckily we have some time. But that makes me like Juju even more. MVS, not a volume pass catcher. McCole Hardman, not a volume pass catcher. If you were the defensive coordinator of the 49ers, I know obviously Kyle Shanahan's the OC / play caller there, but if you were focusing on one person, hey, I'm not going to let Travis Kelce beat me. To your point, you mentioned Fred Warner. Doesn't that make you like Juju even more in this matchup?
Yeah, 100%, especially like on third down, like I was saying, like you're looking for those short little outlet passes. Mahomes hasn't been forcing the ball deep like he was when he had Tyreek Hill at his disposal. It's been a lot more checkdowns, a lot more over the middle stuff. So if you're looking for matchups to exploit, you want those shorter target guys as opposed to the explosive down the field options, which is where I would be leaning towards Juju more than anything.
All right, and I want to share something with the patrons and anybody who happens to be joining us on YouTube for the chat. So part of what I do to be not only good at my own dynasty rosters, but try to help our patrons and this YouTube channel, as well as the podcast channel, is I consume a lot of non-fantasy football related podcasts. And two that I listen to, one is the PFF podcast with Steve Palazzolo and Sam Monson. And then my absolute favorite go-to podcast is comes out on Thursday mornings. It's called RJ Bell's Dream Preview. And why I like both of these is they look at the NFL through non-fantasy lenses, but they bring different grades. Obviously, PFF has a strong bias toward theirs. The Vegas guys have a strong lean toward gambling as well. So that's why I like those. But on both podcasts within the last 10 days, both of them have talked about the use of the too high safety.
Mm-hmm.
You're a Kansas City fan. This was the defense last year that stymied Patrick Mahomes a little bit. Do you remember?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's like I was saying, he's Patrick Mahomes. Say what you will about his arm and his godly power, but he likes to force the ball a lot of times when he doesn't need to. He's not a check down Charlie at all. And that's the defense that'll force you to check down, take what you get. And it took him basically about 10 weeks last year to realize that he had to start checking down or they weren't going to win. Luckily, this year, he doesn't have that issue.
And the reason why I bring this up is because Scott Simpson on Twitter, you can follow him at Nimble with Numbers. Scott's a great follow on social media. And, he was talking about fantasy points this year are down 22% compared to last year. And I think this is a large part of the reason why is teams are just content not to get beat over the top by the big play. You know what? Keep the ball in front of us. And I think that's a big part of the reason. Does that, because that made sense to me when I saw Scott's tweet about everything being down 22% and then hearing two different perspectives about the impact of the too high. Does that make you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I would say that that's part of it. I've just noticed more than anything, the quarterback position as a whole this year has been a little bit off from like an accuracy standpoint. A lot of the easy throws that are in the intermediate range for a lot of the big name quarterbacks, even like Tom Brady, even like Patrick Mahomes, have been just a little bit off. And for me, it's due to the too high and offensive lines across the league have been playing pretty horribly for quite a few teams, as I'm sure you know. The Colts offensive line has been a little bit suspect. The Bears offensive line has been imploding on a weekly basis. And the Chiefs offensive line, although being a decent run blocking group this year, is not quite what they were last year at the pass blocking. So it's kind of a hand in hand. Give a little bit more credit to either side that you want to from me.
All right. So before we get on to Joe's question, Joe's got a dynasty related question for us. What are you doing with Pacheco in dynasty? Are you trading him? Are you holding him? What are you looking to do with Isaiah Pacheco in dynasty? Not just today, but in dynasty.
I'm immediately trying to sell him. I don't really want him all that much. He's a 7th round pick. Like I said, his pass blocking still not there. His efficiency has been just ever so slightly ahead of the other 2 running backs that have been on the team in McKinnon and CH this year. And cool, they want to give him the starting role, but he still doesn't have a complete game, and he hasn't showed it in his collegiate career or in his professional career yet. So if I can get a hype train bid for him or an offer that I'm sending out basically for him, it's something that I'm attempting to do. Again, this is just a guy that you have to realize that in the dynasty space, you were picking up in the 4th round or potentially undrafted free agency in your rookie drafts. And if you can get a 2nd round pick for him now, that's the lottery chip I'm going to do, especially looking at the next couple classes that are coming up at the running back position.
Yeah, I'm as well. I've got his player profiler card put up on playerprofiler.com. Good speed, 4.37 40. Strong, 27 reps on the bench, but not a very bursty guy. If he can, one cut and go, to use a term, if he can find a hole and he can get through it, he might be able to make you some hay this year. What I'm looking to do is I'm looking to send him to a contender for a 2023 first. But you've got to have that conversation.
Yeah.
You've got to have that conversation with that other GM. Hey, you're trying to win. This is the now starting running back in one of the best offenses in the NFL. Go win that championship. But I'll tie this back to Christian McCaffrey, and then we'll cover Christian McCaffrey at the end because I do want to answer some of these questions. This is what happened to Elijah Mitchell. There were people this time last year paying late first for Isaiah Mitchell, and in some cases that may have worked out for some dynasty GMs. Maybe they won some championships, so for them it was worth it. This is Elijah Mitchell all over again. Allegedly Kansas City was involved in trying to get Christian McCaffrey, as was the Rams. But this is the Elijah Mitchell. You know about James Robinson, where they turned around and drafted Travis Etienne, who now looks like he's taken that role. So I'm going to agree. I'll take any first. As a matter of fact, I'll take any first and anything else I could get. Would you take a second and maybe like a younger guy that you like maybe a wide receiver?
I mean, yeah, 100%. I don't know that. Oh, I know for a fact I wouldn't give up even a late first as a contender for Pacheco right now. And yes, he got named the starter, but I have a sneaky suspicion over the next couple of weeks you're going to see that he's not going to be worth a first in this offense. A lot of it, again, has to do with snap shares for me. So if you look at it, he has a 13% snap share on the year right now. Yes, you look at him then taking over that lead role, but Clyde has a 43% snap share at the running back position. So you're looking at basically an even split between Clyde and McKinnon in this offense. You can flip those, which equates to 10 carries a game roughly in this Chiefs offense. So then is he getting the passing down work? Probably not. I'm trying to get as much as humanly possible for him right now if I have him. I only have one share of him though. So that's, do with that what you will.
Today is the day you were gifted. Think about the confluence of events, right? He was named the starter today. 4 of the best offenses in football are on bye, with the Vikings, the Bills, the Rams, and the Eagles. That's a lot of good players. If I could get Miles Sanders and maybe a little, I'm doing that. I like Miles Sanders, but this is a great opportunity for Pacheco. In redraft, we'll answer this, and I'm going to answer Joe's question. This is what I said on Twitter earlier, is someone's going to play Isaiah Pacheco today in your redraft league. And he's probably not going to do as good as you think he's going to because they're playing the Niners at San Francisco. That's the 3rd rated run defense in terms of points per game allowed to the running back position. Don't forget, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not starting, but he'll be involved. Jerick McKinnon will be involved. You add all that up, Isaiah Pacheco probably going to disappoint people who plug him in lineups today. So in redraft, what are they going to do with Pacheco going into a bye week next week? They're going to drop him on Tuesday, and they're going to pick up someone else. And then that's where you scoop in. You don't use your waiver priority or your fab on anybody Tuesday going into Wednesday. You use that priority or fab on Wednesday going into the next time your waivers run, so you can get Pacheco, because you do want this guy in redraft for like weeks 9 through the rest of the season. Does that make sense to you, sir?
Yeah, it makes sense. Like I said, it's all going to be based off of whether or not he can take a lion's share of the touches for me. It has to see an increase for me as over what we've seen from the lead back. And we haven't seen it underneath Reed. Even at the tail end of Jamal Charles' career, we didn't see it. The only time we've ever seen it is with Kareem Hunt, who was kind of otherworldly in this offense. So it's still a wait and see. But like I said, I think that's a fine strategy in a redraft standpoint, because I think it's going to happen in a lot more leagues than you think it is.
All right. I have a question posted on the YouTube, Dynasty Warzone. Just go to YouTube, search us out there if you're watching on Twitter, and that's where you can comment to get a question answered if we get through all the patron questions. So Mr. Joe Fry wants to know, an 0-6 team with underperforming players, do you trade away Ken Walker? And if so, what are you looking for? So Dallas, you want the first volley?
Yeah, I'll take it. I would say no. I'm in a very similar situation. I have 2 leagues that I'm 1-5 in, underperforming. But the thing is, if you classify your players as underperforming, you don't want to trade away a stud like Kenneth Walker, even if you can get a big haul for it, because it means that you have the mindset that your team could do well or could potentially compete next year. It's just not quite doing what you're wanting it to do this year. I'm in the exact same situation in said league, where it's a points for that is associated with a non-playoff team seeding. And yes, I know that sucks in a lot of situations, but Ken Walker is not really a piece I'm looking to move right now, unless you have pretty much no other running back on your team. If he's your only running back on your team and you don't have a full, well-rounded roster, I'd be trying to move him. If you're trading him away, you can't trade him for just a first right now. You're going to have to trade him for significantly more, just due to the fact that in all reality, you spent somewhere around the 103 to the 105 on him in a normal league, in Superflex specifically this year. And he's performing above that 3 to 5 range based off of his points per game right now. So he's getting the workload we all anticipated. Rashawn Penny is officially out of the window completely due to injury. And you're looking at a true tried, basically starter, potential top 5 running back for the rest of the year in Kenneth Walker. I'm looking to acquire a running back plus a first. If you are in that competing mode and you think next year that you could probably do something, successful, maybe throw a dart throw out to the Kamara owner. See if you can get a Kamara and a first for a Ken Walker if someone's trying to re-roll the dice and get a younger running back if you are competing. But again, it's kind of situational for you.
All right, I agree. I was doing a little bit of research on this question for Joe as we were chatting here, and this is the thing, right? Isn't this the thing that you want?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the running back. The running back position, like I said, I'm going to save Christian McCaffrey like the last thing we do before we end the stream. I'll cover that at the end. But all the really good running backs that are performing right now, they're all in year, 3, 4, 5, 6? In the case of Derrick Henry, 7.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be the thing. And I know, Dallas, you're my rookie guy, so give me, a couple of seconds on it. I know this 2023 running back class could be the closest thing we've seen since maybe 2017, but he could be within a year, like top 5. Like we go into startup season next year for Dynasty in like March. Is it going to be a shocker if Kenny Walker is a top 5 running back? It wouldn't be for me.
No, not at all. And like looking at next year's class, yes, it could be good. Yes, there's quite a few very interesting running backs in that class. But for me, coming out on a 1-year producer like Kenneth Walker, it was hard to see him as a tried and true locked and loaded player that you could bet your whole farm on. But seeing what he's doing in the NFL, he's doing exactly what he did at Michigan State his last year. He's a dynasty, not quite a blue chip, but he's getting there pretty closely. That you always talk about trying to acquire. In next year's running back class, I would have him as RB2. And it's not really close between a lot of the guys that are behind him at RB2, based off of the fact that I don't have to project what he's going to do in the NFL. It's what we've seen. So Bijan's the only one that I would want more, just because from a physical aspect, Bijan is insane. But then the thing is, Kenneth Walker, metric wise, is pretty insane from a physical standpoint too. So yeah, I like I said, I'm not really trying to push him. If I am trying to push him, it's for a tried and true, locked and loaded player that's still in the prime of his career, plus a first. So.
Well, let me play devil's advocate to help Joe out because Joe has been one of our loyal patrons since day one. We have so many loyal patrons, but Joe's like what I would consider like an OG. And Joe, if I were going to sell him, I would wait until about a month from now, right before the Tampa Bay matchup, because today he plays the LA Chargers. They're the second friendliest defense in terms of fantasy points to the running back. Then next week, he has the New York Giants. They're 17th, the 17th friendliest. And then 2 weeks from, and then 3 weeks out would be the Arizona Cardinals. And they're a top 10 defense as it relates to giving up points. So he's going to have 3 games to really show out. And a contender is really going to be licking their chops. Maybe then, God forbid, it's fantasy football, someone gets hurt. And I'm not going to put any names out there, but you know the names that you would want. You know, a move that I could see doing, and I know people are probably going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? Because he's been way down. But coming into the season, he was a consensus in the dynasty industry, anywhere from 1 to 3 for a lot of services. If I could get Najee Harris and a decent first for Kenneth Walker, I'd have to consider it. Maybe more. Maybe you could get more. But here's the thing. The demand for Kenneth Walker is not going to go down. Yeah. It's only going to go up, especially if he puts together 3 big games against 3 winnable matchups in a row. Then as you creep closer to the fantasy playoffs, then you might even be able to create a bidding war. So those are a couple of things that you could think about, but I'm damn sure not moving him today.
Yeah, no, agreed. I just from my statement, I would not be going after Najee. I was off Najee after last year's efficiency standpoint, and that team right now with the lack of offensive line weapons is very concerning to me. But yes, I agree with the move. That's something similar that I would be attempting to move because he's the guy that you want.
All right. Mr. Darren Fitzpatrick, one of our international patrons, he says, hey, both, is Dalton Schultz trustworthy now that Dak is back? Dallas, what do you think? We're going to talk about Dallas because your name is Dallas.
Yeah. So anyone who's following along with my weekly tight end sleeper and fantasy sleeper, like rookie flexes, Schultz is actually my guy this week. His numbers when he's healthy with Dak speak for themselves. And yes, he's been dealing with injury. Yes, Dak has been dealing with injury. But the one thing about the Detroit matchup that we've seen time and time again underneath the new head coach is that they like to have shootouts and they don't typically have low scoring games. So when you're looking at an offense that is still kind of looking for weapons to help support outside of Lamb and throwing to the running backs right now, I'm looking at Schultz as a pretty high floor player where I think he's ranked like 17th or 18th in consensus right now at the tight end position and started behind guys that I would definitely be starting him above this week. I'm willing to trust him if you have him because odds are you don't have a tight end on your team that is more trustworthy than what you're potentially going to get out of Schultz. So,
yeah, and to echo Dallas's sentiment, right now, really, if you don't have, oh my God, Andrews, Kelsey, and it looks like George Kittle starting to reemerge. And I think George Kittle, not only did he have like 8 for 80 last week on 10 targets, but Trent Williams is back. So his need to be in to block more, because that was the big fear when Trent Williams hurt his ankle. So if you don't have one of those 3 guys, is any tight end trustworthy? You know,
I personally, my guy this year, you know, from our chats earlier in the offseason is Njoku. And Njoku has been pretty much as consistent as you could ask for from a tight end from a PPR standpoint. Last week, 3 receptions, 58 yards. The week before that, 6 for 88. The week before that, 5 for 73. Before that, 9 for 89 and a touchdown. He's consistently giving you a really nice floor because he's kind of the only one outside of Amari Cooper that's getting targets in that Browns offense. But I agree. Those are pretty much my 4 or 5 that I'm locked and loaded. Other than that, Schultz is right back where he was before the season started.
So this is very rarely, I think if you guys have listened to this podcast for any length of time, you know I'm always looking for value, right, Dallas? That's kind of my gimmick.
Yep.
I want value at every position. Well, I think David Njoku is the one guy not one guy. Like I would pay market right now for Kenneth Walker. We just talked about him. I
Mm-hmm.
would pay the asking price. But David Njoku, here's why. When Deshaun Watson gets back, and every week we're 1 week closer to Deshaun Watson getting back, you're going to see not only what I want in Njoku, I'm going to throw in a little side nugget for Donovan Peoples-Jones, especially as the weather gets bad. I don't want to go as far as to call Amari Cooper soft, but go back and look at that dude's splits when the weather gets into the 30s. It's not been good.
Mm-hmm.
And but David Njoku is going to be the receiving option I trust the most in Cleveland, and he's about what? When is week 7? So you're about like 5-6 weeks away from getting a massive QB upgrade for David Njoku. So
And that's going right into the playoffs too.
Right into the fantasy playoff. And that's the beauty of it, right?
Yep.
Because the playoffs in most good leagues start weeks 15, 16, 17.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to give him and Watson time to work together weeks 12 or 13. I don't remember the exact week he gets back, but it's right around that point.
Mm-hmm.
He then gets weeks, 12, 13, 14, 2-3 weeks in there to get up to speed. And then all of a sudden you're into the fantasy playoffs. But back to Darren's questions, it might be a little challenging, but who does Dak trust beyond anybody else in that offense? We can say CeeDee Lamb, but CeeDee Lamb really came on when, Cooper Rush took over.
Mm-hmm.
And up until he got injured, I think he could still be Dak's primary target. So, yeah, I trust him as much as any tight end not named George Kittle, Mark Andrews, or I'm missing somebody. Travis Kelce.
Yep.
Your guy there. So there you go, Darren. I hope that helps with your question about Mr. Schultz. I'm going to go back to Mike. Mike Kenny wants to know, are sacks up because of bad offensive lines?
I mean, simple answer, yeah. I mean, just at the end of the day, yeah. And quarterbacks holding onto the ball a little bit longer because there's quite a few injured wide receivers on major teams right now. I keep coming back to the example of the Bears, but the Bears are just like a prime example of everything that's wrong with the NFL offense right now. So, yes, that's my answer.
Mine's going to be that, but it's the defense is always going to be ahead of the offense. Mm-hmm. And you start to see these freaks of nature from an athletic standpoint come into the NFL. Walker, the guy who was drafted number 1 overall by the Jags out of Georgia. I mean, he was a rotational player at Georgia and went number 1. Mm-hmm. You're looking at Aiden Hutchinson. George Karlaftis has not had a bad rookie season. You're starting to see, the talent and the athleticism on defense is getting scary. Who's the big guy, Davis, who plays for the Eagles? He also came out of Georgia, who ran like a 4.6.
Jaron Davis.
Yes, yeah. He ran like a 4.6 40 at like 300 some odd pounds. I mean, that's the problem. And the line, remember, there's a big difference between being on the attack and being on the defense, whether it's football, the battle, whatever. It's a lot harder to repel than it is to move forward. Mm-hmm. And because because Dallas and I don't give a shit, it's the NFL, they've limited the amount of practice and time that these offensive lines can work together. And then as you get into season, you get more and more guys hurt on the offensive line, which hurts that continuity. And then now the offensive lines are even playing more from behind than it was before. So that would be my answer.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. You know what? We got an ugly one. Okay. You also answered this one. Who's higher next year? Ken Walker, incoming rookies. You said you like Walker better than any incoming rookie not named Bijan Robinson.
Correct. Yeah. There's some consistency that you're seeing from Sean Tucker that we've seen the last couple of years at Syracuse, and then Jahmyr Gibbs at Alabama is a fun little experiment, but he's still not getting like the huge workload that we're seeing from a normal Alabama back. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. Plus, it's a one-year wonder kind of situation that we dealt with Kenneth Walker too. So just from what we've seen with Ken Walker in the NFL, I would still have him higher than the guys behind Bijan.
All right, our boy Bama, another OG. Mm-hmm. He popped by to say, "Morning, fellas. Chase Edmonds or Marvin Jones in the flex." Woof.
Yeah, for me, I have this situation in many leagues because you were able to get them very cheap over the last couple of years. But I am tired of playing the guessing game between Marvin Jones and Zay Jones as to which one is going to be successful in that offense on a given week. So I would lean Edmonds, even though he's still not really taking over that backfield like we anticipated him doing earlier on in the season. I know, right? It's ugly.
Well, part of the reason why I don't want to say Edmonds is I'm using some data here. Over the first 6 weeks of the season, Raheem Mostert's snap share has just gradually, he started the season 42, then 55, then 56, and in the last 3 weeks, it's been all plus 60. It's been 72, 69, nice, and then 62. He's more and more involved. Man, I was trying to find Edmonds, but his snap share has just continued to plummet. So I don't know. If it's just standard scoring, I am going to lean. Oof, I want to get this right. That's why this matters to me.
Yeah.
Man, I'm gonna go Edmonds just because I think he's guaranteed to get a few more touches.
Yeah. I mean, my counter statement would be try and pick up Foster Moreau on the waiver wire and start him in your flex instead.
And I don't hate that, given the Raiders matchup and no Darren Waller this week. I would echo that sentiment if you had like one of the big three tight ends, and you could kick one of those three to your flex and move Moreau to your tight end.
Yeah.
And how about this? I'm going to say this. I'm going to hedge my bet a little bit with this one for you, Bama. I'm going to take Edmonds if I'm the favorite in this matchup. And I'm going to take Marvin Jones if I need like a big week, because it would not surprise me if Marvin Jones had like a 4 for 80 and 2 type week. Whereas if you need like 6-8 points, I think that's more along the lines of what Edmonds would get you. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's definitely fair. I would just say that Marvin Jones has only had one like 100-yard game in the last 17. So I would just caution high expectations, but if you're going for boom bust, he's definitely the player you want to target.
All right, we're getting ready to wrap this up. We're about 40 minutes in. By the way, Mike said it was Jordan Davis, not Jaron.
Yeah.
So good catch there from Mike. Talk Christian McCaffrey real quick. So this came out late. No, so I said at the beginning of the show, I was on vacation with my family. We were in actually Colorado Springs, home of the Air Force Academy, and that's mountain time. By the way, if you're watching football and want a spot to watch football and like live that football life, dude, mountain time. I'm telling you, it was 6:15. The game started. We were just finishing dinner, and it was over by like 9:15. It was legit. But literally, when that game ended, that's when the Christian McCaffrey news broke. The 49ers gave up a 2023 second, third, and fourth, as well as a 24 fifth. He gave up a 2-3-4, and so got 4 picks for Christian McCaffrey. What were your thoughts? You can give us a fantasy spin. You can give us a dynasty spin.
Yeah, if you have him in redraft, you have to keep him. I mean, you're not looking at really a better situation down the stretch than what you're going to get in this offense. If it's dynasty, I am immediately selling, because we were kind of selling Christian McCaffrey before the season, and now he's in an offense that everyone lauds for having great running back system. You're realistically going to see him get a higher consistent running back rush total than he's probably had in his entire career in this offense. And it is going to eat into the Debo workload, I think, more than people are really going to expect in this offense. So it could be good for McCaffrey, but I'm trying to get out right now because the value is starting to peak again with the move to San Francisco, which is not typically what you expect from a 26, soon to be 27-year-old running back. And secondly, when you look at the team, say what you will about the players, the system eats up and spits out running backs due to injuries. And the one issue we had with McCaffrey was the injury concerns of the last 2 years. I mean, this is like great for a fantasy hypothetical situation, but for a long-term value standpoint, I don't know that he's going to be able to survive in this offense long-term.
Man, you stole some of my best points. We'll start with the injury issue. I
Yeah.
mean, it's chasing the dragon, right? We've
Hmm.
seen we've seen Christian McCaffrey get that 400 point PPR season, and I don't think we're ever going to see it again. But we can't unsee it. So from a dynasty standpoint, if I have Christian McCaffrey and I can go offer Christian, I would just start Christian McCaffrey straight up for Kenneth Walker. I
Yeah.
mean, I like Christian McCaffrey, but talk about the injury issues. Talk about by next year he'll be going into year 7 of his career. And here's a little sneaky bit of info for you. Injuries don't get better as you get older. They only get worse. So for me, that would be a conversation I would have. Other guys in that range that I would love to get to first for Christian McCaffrey. Because you hit my biggest point. It's the injury issue. Think about
Yeah.
since Kyle Shanahan, what's that old saying? Nobody, gets out of here alive.
Hmm.
No running back gets out of this San Francisco-based Kyle Shanahan offense alive. They
Yeah.
all get wrecked. Tevin Coleman, Elijah Mitchell, the list goes on, and those are just the two that just instantly pop in my head. Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson Jr., everybody who's toted the rock for Mr. Shanahan in this offense gets hurt. It is a big blow to Debo. I'm actually looking to sell Debo and Christian McCaffrey. I don't think it has a tremendous impact on George Kittle. I don't
Hmm.
think it has a tremendous impact on Brandon Ayuk. I like Brandon Ayuk as like a boom bust week, as like a wide receiver 2-3 that can win you a week. But if I can get multiple firsts for Christian McCaffrey, or like I said, a player that I really like in a first, I'm ready to move. And it's a combination of the injury risk for both him and the offense. So that's like a force multiplier, right?
Hmm.
He's an injury risk. The offense that he's playing in is also an injury risk. So there's your multiplier, and he's going into year 7. So for me, if I can use the good news to get out, that is what I'm doing. But yeah, if this is a big thing for you if you had him in redraft.
Hmm.
Man, this is good. He'll be limited this week, but Carolina, this would only be a negative in redraft as if Carolina was already past their bye,
Yeah.
and then he hadn't been, and so you would have lost him for 2 potential bye weeks, but that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So this is going to work out real well for you in redraft. All right, we're going to answer one more question, and we got 2 more questions.
Yeah.
Let's get it again. All right.
We're on Bama's. I think he had a follow up one.
He did. He
Yeah.
did. Bama's got one more. Evan Ingram, Nico Collins, or Michael Carter in the flex PPR. I already was sneaking ahead. I was looking at the comments as you were
Hmm.
talking about McCaffrey. For me, this is Nico Collins, especially if I'm the underdog. Ingram, I've wanted Ingram to be a thing so badly. I was hoping that he could be Dan Arnold plus from last year when he came over from the Panthers. I haven't seen it thus far. But based on the game script, I think Nico Collins could give you a couple of nice home runs. I believe the game's in Houston. Davis Mills tends to play better in Houston. If you're just looking to put a few, points in your lineup, then Michael Carter. But it just feels like as the season goes on, the Brees Hall machine just gets stronger and stronger and stronger, even gobbling up the PPR. So I'm going to take the big swing. I'm going to try to win the week. I'm going to go Nico Collins.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that one. I kind of chatted about it in the Patreon group chat a couple days ago. Michael Carter's target share when Zach Wilson is the quarterback versus anyone else is pretty terrible. They are starting to lean more on Brees Hall, but Carter's still getting about 40% of the snaps, but he's not seeing the target share. He's in there to block and run occasionally. So there's not a consistency basis. Nico actually out of all 3 has the highest floor right now. He's been very consistent target wise due to 1, Brandon Cooks kind of taking a step back due to injury and his play this year. And 2, not really having any other options in the receiving game down in Houston. None of the tight ends are truly stepping up for them right now. We were all hoping Brevin Jordan was going to be there. He was injured, still hasn't done anything. So I'm right there with you in lockstep. I do like Evan Ingram to an extent, but the thing is, it's the exact same issue that I had with the wide receivers in Jacksonville. You cannot predict where these targets are going from a week-to-week basis in this Jaguars offense, and that includes the tight end position. So I'm also leaning Collins.
That's one of those things is when you're invested in an offense that doesn't have a true alpha,
Yeah.
like Jacksonville, you have no idea week to week where the targets are going to funnel.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it very difficult. And then the Raiders, if you're using DraftKings, and if memory serves, DraftKings uses full PPR point scoring. The Raiders are right at the top 10 in fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. Obviously, Brandon Cooks is going to get his, but the Raiders are giving up 35.5 points a week. DK, that's DraftKings scoring, to the wide receiver position. FanDuel, I believe, is half point PPR scoring, and they give up 29.1 points a week to the wide receiver position. Now that would be spread out, Collins and Nico and whoever, but that's a nice chunk to try to get a piece of, especially in a game where the Raiders should be able to score and the Texans are going to be forced to play catch up. So that is going to be my lean. Let's see here. And we have one last dynasty question. We're a dynasty show. Let's get out on that one. Ayuk worth a buy low, a third. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get him for that.
I'd give a second. I'll be honest with you. I'll give you a contender second as bye weeks are just now creeping up on us. I'll throw you a second for Ayuk, and I can put him in my wide receiver 3 position or my flex, knowing that based off just what we saw last week in Atlanta, he can win me a week.
Yeah.
So anytime that I can get a player that maybe isn't going to be a consistent start, but a guy that's going to give me the ability to win a week in an offense that he's going to have his weeks. And that's the kind of guy I want, a guy that when he goes nuclear, he wins me a week. So if I can get him for a second, a contender second, like that 209 or later, hell yeah, I'll buy Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, and I was in the same boat. I was trying to acquire him all offseason this year for my contender seconds, and I wasn't able to do it. The thing with Ayuk owners is that they know how explosive and how good he can be if he just gets a consistent target share week in and week out. The issue right now is that he is kind of getting that, but not really. The other metric that's kind of concerning just from like a statistics standpoint is a good one to look at is yards per target. For your boy Nico that we just talked about over the last 3 weeks, Nico is averaging over 13 yards per target, which is very high on the threshold. Anything over 9 is good. On the counterpart, Ayuk is averaging basically right at 9. Plus there's only one game in the last 3 that he's had over 4 targets, which was last week. So it's a little bit concerning for his production right now, but outlook wise, he can be an alpha if he's given the targets.
Well, listen, man, I really appreciate you jumping on with me today.
Yeah.
We tried to do the live stream last year. It's just like in the fall and the winter, there's so much going on.
Yeah.
When you work Monday through Friday, like the weekends, you got those 2 days and you got to get a lot of stuff done. I was able to do this because my lovely wife was willing to go back to the training facility and pick my son up for baseball. But I wanted to do this for our patrons. And if you're watching on YouTube, this is what I do on Sunday mornings. I can't get behind the mic and always answer as in depth. But on Sunday mornings, Dallas, me, a lot of the guys from the Dynasty Warzone were in the group chat. Dallas mentioned earlier he was in the group chat answering questions. That's the benefit of being a patron over at patreon.com/Dynasty Warzone. Dallas, what's going on? The rookie rundown. When can we expect a new show? You just dropped one about 2 weeks ago. And I got to think some more rookie deliciousness is coming our way.
Yeah, I'm planning on doing quarterly rookie shows right now. And then there should be an IDP specific show, like a mid-season show, probably dropping at the end of next week. So you're looking at the end of next week, an IDP show, and then the end of the following week being my mid-season recap for my rookie report cards. Going over all the players. It was about an hour and 15 minutes the last time I did it on the first episode, just to cover literally every rookie of any amount of relevancy that was injured, not injured, producing, not producing. And then, rookie season is going to start cooking up here pretty soon, pretty much right when we start hitting the playoffs. It's full go for me for about 5 months. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm having a little bit of a breather over the first couple of months of the season, which is kind of nice.
Well, you deserve it. You put out so much awesome content for us in the real rookie season as rookie drafts come up. And don't let this guy fool you. He's got a pretty important day job, and he works his tail off. And he's also got a significant other that he's got to take care of. So the fact that he's here sharing his time, his mind, and his rookie expertise is always appreciated. But that man's name is Dallas Hyder. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see on YouTube he's at Salad Galore. That's Dallas backwards, SALLAD Galore. On Twitter, you can follow me at DWZ Memphis. And on behalf of Dallas, we'll see you back here real soon. Have a good Sunday. Have a great week. Thank you, guys.